Christopher Nolan sat at a plastic table outside a 7-Eleven in Pattaya, Thailand, nursing a Chang beer and watching the endless parade of tourists, bar girls, and motorbikes flow past him like a river that never stopped moving. He was 56 years old, broke, and living in a 2,000 baht per month guest house room that smelled of mildew and stale cigarette smoke. 6 months earlier, he had 190,000 euros in his Irish bank account. The proceeds from selling his electrical contracting business after a shoulder injury forced him into early retirement. He had a wife named Waranya, a beautiful 27-year-old woman who called him her hero and promised to build a life with him. He had dreams of opening a small bar in Pattaya, of living comfortably by the sea, of finally finding the happiness and appreciation that had eluded him for so long. Now he had nothing. The money was gone, drained slowly over 5 months through a combination of cash withdrawals, bank transfers, and purchases that Waranya claimed were for their future together. The wife was gone too, disappeared to Phuket with another foreign man, leaving behind only a handwritten note that read, "Don't hate me, I need to live my life." The dreams were gone, replaced by the harsh reality of survival in a city that chewed up men like him and spat them out without a second thought. Her name was Waranya Thefasaden, though she had told Christopher to call her Bo. She worked as a hostess at a beer bar on 2nd Road, one of thousands of young Thai women who made their living serving drinks and providing companionship to lonely foreign men. She was not extraordinary or particularly beautiful by Pattaya standards, but she had something that Christopher found irresistible, a warmth, a vulnerability, a way of making him feel like he was the most important person in the world. They met on Christopher's second night in Pattaya in March of 2023. He had walked into her bar with no intention of staying more than one drink, but Bo had poured him a Leo beer, laughed at his jokes, and told him he had a big heart. 3 nights later, he was still there. 2 weeks later, they were living together. 3 months later, they were married at the Pattaya Amphur office, and Christopher had given Bo access to his bank cards for what she said were household expenses and bills. Every expat in Pattaya had warned him. They told him about the 3-day rule: never spend more than 3 consecutive nights with the same bar girl, or you will fall in love and lose everything. They told him never to marry a bar girl, never to give her access to your money, never to believe that you were special or different. But Christopher had ignored them all. He called them cynical, bitter, jealous. He believed that Bo was different, that their connection was real, that love could transcend age, culture, and circumstances. He was wrong. And now, sitting outside that 7-Eleven with a warm beer and an empty bank account, Christopher had become exactly what he had sworn he would never be: another cautionary tale, another broken man warning newcomers about the mistakes he had made, knowing that most of them would ignore his advice just as he had ignored the advice given to him. This is the story of how Christopher Nolan, a 56-year-old electrician from Cork, Ireland, ignored the 3-day rule and lost everything. This is the story of how spontaneity and hope can destroy a life just as easily as they can save it. And this is the story of why, in Pattaya, the 3-day rule exists for a reason. Christopher Nolan had not always been a reckless man. He had been born and raised in Cork, the youngest of 4 children in a working-class Catholic family. His father had been a carpenter, his mother a homemaker, and they had lived in a small terraced house on the north side of the city. Christopher left school at 16 and became an apprentice electrician, learning the trade through a local contractor who specialized in residential and commercial wiring. He was good at his work, reliable, skilled, and honest. By the time he was 30, he had started his own electrical contracting business with a partner, a fellow electrician named Declan. They specialized in renovation projects, new builds, and commercial installations. The business was successful enough to provide a decent living, though Christopher was never going to get rich from it. He bought a small semi-detached house in Douglas, married a woman named Siobhan when he was 32, and had 2 children, a daughter named Aif and a son named Liam. The marriage lasted 15 years before it fell apart. Siobhan left him when he was 47, saying she felt trapped, that she had married too young, that she needed to find herself. The divorce was messy and expensive, and Christopher lost the house in the settlement. His relationship with his children deteriorated after the divorce. Aif sided with her mother, and Liam moved to Dublin for university and rarely came home. After the divorce, Christopher threw himself into work. He bought out his partner Declan's share of the business and ran it on his own for several years. But when he was 54, he fell off a ladder on a job site and badly injured his shoulder. He needed surgery, months of physical therapy, and even then, his shoulder was never the same. He could no longer do the physical work that had defined his career for nearly 40 years. In late 2022, Christopher made the decision to sell the business. He sold it to a younger electrician for 90,000 euros, far less than it was worth. But he was tired and in pain and ready to move on. Combined with his savings, he had around 190,000 euros, enough to retire early if he was careful, enough to start over somewhere new. He had been lonely for years. After Siobhan left, he had tried dating, but it never worked out. The women his age in Cork were either married, divorced and bitter, or simply not interested in a middle-aged electrician with a bad shoulder and emotional baggage. Christopher felt invisible, forgotten, like he had become irrelevant before his life was even over. That was when he started researching places to retire abroad. He had always wanted to travel, but he had never had the time or money. Now he had both, and he needed to get away from Cork, away from the memories, away from the sense of failure that clung to him like a shadow. Thailand kept appearing in his searches: warm weather, low cost of living, friendly people, and most intriguingly, a large community of Western men who had found companionship and happiness in ways that seemed impossible back home. Christopher watched videos of older men living in Pattaya, and they all seemed content, relaxed, surrounded by young Thai women who laughed at their jokes and made them feel valued. He read forums where men talked about the 3-day rule, about the dangers of falling in love with bar girls, about the importance of protecting your money. But he also read stories of men who had found real relationships, who had married Thai women and built genuine partnerships. Christopher wanted to believe that he could be one of those men. He wanted to believe that he was still capable of finding love, that someone could still want him, that his life could still have meaning. In February of 2023, at the age of 56, Christopher booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok and left Ireland behind. Christopher arrived at Bangkok Suvarnabhumi Airport on a humid March evening. He was nervous, excited, and slightly terrified. He had never been to Asia before, and the sensory overload of Bangkok was overwhelming: the heat, the noise, the crowds, the unfamiliar smells and sounds. He spent one night in a cheap hotel near Khao San Road, barely sleeping, listening to the chaos of the city outside his window. The next morning, he took a bus to Pattaya. The journey took about 2.5 hours, and Christopher spent the entire ride staring out the window, watching the landscape change from dense urban sprawl to open highways to the eventual appearance of the sea. When the bus pulled into Pattaya's North Bus Terminal, Christopher grabbed his backpack and stepped out into the late morning heat. Pattaya was everything the videos had promised and more. The streets were lined with bars, massage parlors, restaurants, and shops selling everything from cheap electronics to fake designer clothes. Motorbikes zipped past in chaotic streams, their drivers weaving through traffic with reckless confidence. Street vendors grilled meat on portable stalls, filling the air with smoke and the smell of chili and garlic. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, there were women. Young Thai, women in tight clothing, older women sitting in groups outside bars, women on motorbikes, women calling out to passing men. Christopher checked into a small guest house on Soi Buakau, a narrow street in the heart of Pattaya's entertainment district. His room was basic: a single bed, a small bathroom, a tiny balcony overlooking the street, but it cost only 600 baht per night, less than 20 euros, and it was clean enough. For his first day and night, Christopher walked around the city, trying to get his bearings. He ate at a small Thai restaurant, walked along Beach Road, and watched the sun set over the ocean. He felt a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. He was free, unattached, in a place where no one knew him and no one judged him. But he was also alone, and the loneliness that had driven him to Thailand had followed him here. On his second night in Pattaya, Christopher decided to explore the bars. He walked down Second Road, a major thoroughfare lined with open-air beer bars, each one with a cluster of women sitting on stools, drinking and chatting with customers. He stopped at one of the bars, a simple place with a wooden counter, a few high tables, and a row of beer coolers along the back wall. A young woman approached him immediately, smiling, and asked what he wanted to drink. Her name tag read Bao, She was not the most beautiful woman Christopher had seen in Pattaya, but there was something about her that caught his attention. She was petite, maybe 5 feet tall, with long black hair tied back in a ponytail and a round, friendly face. She wore jean shorts and a simple tank top, and when she smiled, her eyes crinkled at the corners in a way that seemed genuine rather than practiced. She brought him a Leo beer, opened it, and set it down in front of him. "First time Pattaya?" she asked in clear English. "Yeah," Christopher said. "Just got here yesterday." "You like?" "It is. Overwhelming. Not sure what to make of it yet." Bao laughed. "Pattaya crazy. But if you know right place, can be very good." "Where you from?" "Ireland. Cork." "Oh, Ireland. I never meet Irish man before. You very far from home." "Yeah. Needed a change. Needed to get away from everything." Bao nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Sometimes we need to run away to find something new." They talked for a while about Ireland, about Thailand, about life. Bao told Christopher she was from a small village near Roy Et in northeastern Thailand, that she had been working in Pattaya for 4 years, that she was saving money to help her mother maintain the family's small rice farm. She said she did not like working in the bar, that it was just temporary, that she wanted to find a good man and have a normal life. She said most of the men who came to the bars only wanted one thing, and she was tired of it. Christopher liked her immediately. She was not overly flirtatious or pushy like some of the other girls he had seen. She seemed real, grounded, with a quiet sadness that Christopher recognized in himself. He stayed at the bar for 3 hours, buying drinks for both of them, and when he finally stood to leave, Bo touched his arm gently and said, "You come back tomorrow? I like talking to you. You different." Christopher did come back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. He had intended to visit other bars, to explore different parts of Pattaya, but he kept returning to Bo's bar. She started calling him my handsome Irish man, which made him laugh, but also made him feel good. She said he had a big heart, that he was kind and respectful, that she felt comfortable with him. On the third night, another expat, a 60-year-old British man named Graham, who was sitting at a nearby table, leaned over and said, "Mate, you are breaking the 3-day rule. You need to be careful." "What is the 3-day rule?" Christopher asked. "Never spend more than 3 consecutive nights with the same bar girl," Graham said. "Once you pass 3 nights, you will start to fall in love. And once you fall in love, you are finished. You will marry her, give her your money, and lose everything. It happens to every man who stays too long." Christopher laughed. "I think I can handle myself. I am not some naive kid." Graham shook his head. "They all say that. Just be careful, mate. These girls are professionals. They know exactly what they are doing." Christopher dismissed Graham's warning. He was 56 years old, not some naive teenager. He knew what he was doing. Bo was different. Their connection was real. Call to action. If you're watching this and thinking, "I would never make that mistake," I want you to understand something. Every single man who falls for this scam thinks the exact same thing. Romance scammers in Pattaya are experts at exploiting loneliness, hope, and the desperate need to feel valued. Subscribe to this channel and share this video to help protect others from making the same devastating mistakes Christopher did. His story is about to spiral out of control, and you need to see how quickly a few bad decisions can destroy an entire life. By the end of Christopher's first week in Pattaya, he and Bo were inseparable. She had stopped working at the bar. Christopher paid the bar owner 10,000 baht, about 270 euros, to release her, and she moved into his guest house room. It was cramped with both of them there, but Christopher did not care. He felt happier than he had in years. Bo cooked for him, cleaned the room, and made him feel like he mattered. She was affectionate, but not in an overwhelming way. She would hold his hand when they walked through the streets, rest her head on his shoulder when they sat by the beach, and tell him he was a good man. She talked about her dreams about opening a small shop someday, about helping her mother, about finding a man who would treat her with respect and build a life with her. Christopher started to imagine that life with her. He was 56 years old, retired, with enough money to live comfortably in Thailand for many years. Bao was 27, young enough to be his daughter, but Christopher pushed that thought aside. Age did not matter, he told himself. What mattered was connection, compatibility, mutual respect. After 2 weeks, Bo said the guest house was too small for both of them. She suggested they rent a small condo, nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom place where they could have more space and privacy. Christopher agreed. They found a condo in Jomtien, about 10 minutes from central Pattaya, in a building that catered mostly to long-term foreign residents. The rent was 12,000 baht per month, about 320 euros, and the condo was furnished with a bed, a couch, a small kitchen, and a balcony overlooking the street below. Bao was thrilled. She decorated the condo with flowers and small decorations from the market. She cooked elaborate meals, inviting a few of her friends over to show off their new home. Christopher felt proud. He felt like he was building something real. But Bo also started talking about money. She said her mother was struggling with debts from the rice farm, that there had been a bad harvest, and the family owed money to local lenders. She said she was worried about her mother, that she wanted to help but did not have enough saved. She showed Christopher photos of her mother, a small, weathered woman standing in front of a wooden house on stilts, and Christopher felt a surge of sympathy. He asked how much money she needed. Bao said 30,000 baht, about 800 euros. Christopher did not hesitate. He withdrew the money from an ATM and gave it to her. Bao hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes, and said, "You are best man I ever meet. You have such big heart." Over the next few weeks, there were more expenses. Bao's younger brother needed money for school fees. There was a problem with the roof on her mother's house. A family member was sick and needed medical treatment. Each time, Bo would show Christopher photos, documents in Thai that he could not read, and explain the situation with tearful urgency. And each time, Christopher would withdraw money and give it to her. By the end of his second month in Pattaya, Christopher had given Bo around 60,000 euros. It was a significant amount, but he told himself it was an investment in their relationship, in their future, together. He was helping the woman he loved. He was making a difference. In early May, just 2 months after they met, Bo told Christopher she wanted to marry him. She said it was important in Thai culture, that her family was asking questions, that people in her village were judging her for living with a foreign man without being married. She said she wanted to be a proper wife, to have the respect and security that came with marriage. Christopher had been married once before, and the experience had ended badly. But Bo was different from Siobhan. She was warm, appreciative, and seemingly devoted to making him happy. And Christopher was tired of being cautious, tired of protecting himself from potential pain. He wanted to take a leap of faith. He wanted to believe that he could still have a happy marriage. They went to the Pattaya Amphur office on a Thursday morning in mid-May. Bo wore a simple white dress she had bought at a local market, and Christopher wore a button-down shirt and clean trousers. They brought 2 of Bo's friends to serve as witnesses, and the entire process took less than 45 minutes. When they walked out of the office, Bo was holding a marriage certificate and crying tears of joy. They went to a small restaurant on 2nd Road to celebrate. Bao posted photos on her Facebook page with captions like, "My forever husband" and "Finally a good man who loves me." Christopher felt a surge of pride and happiness. He had done it. He had found love again. He had found a woman who appreciated him, who made him feel like his life still had meaning. But even then, there were warning signs. The expats Christopher had met in Pattaya, men like Graham, the British man who had warned him about the 3-day rule, were concerned. Graham pulled Christopher aside one evening at a bar and said, "Mate, I know you think she is different, but you just married a bar girl. You have known her for 2 months. Do you really think this is going to end well?" Christopher was annoyed. She is not just a bar girl. She has a family, a history, dreams. She is not some opportunistic scammer. "They all have families," Graham said. "They all have sob stories, and they all disappear once they get what they want. Protect your money. Do not give her access to your bank accounts. Do not put anything in her name." Christopher dismissed Graham's advice. He told himself these men were bitter, cynical, that they had been hurt and now assumed every relationship was doomed. But his relationship was different. Bao loved him. She had married him. She was his wife. After the marriage, Bo started talking more seriously about their finances. She said it would be easier if she had access to Christopher's bank cards, so she could pay for groceries, utilities, and household expenses without having to ask him for money every time. She said it would make her feel more like a real wife, more like a partner. Christopher was hesitant. He had heard too many stories about foreign men losing everything after giving their Thai wives access to their money, but Bo seemed hurt by his hesitation. She said he did not trust her, that he still saw her as a bar girl rather than his wife. She said if they were going to have a real marriage, they needed to trust each other completely. Christopher did not want to hurt her. He did not want her to feel like he was holding back, so he gave her his bank card and PIN number. He told himself it was only for household expenses, that he would monitor the account regularly, that everything would be fine. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Bo would withdraw small amounts for groceries, for utilities, for household items. Christopher checked his account regularly, and the withdrawals seemed reasonable. But gradually, the amount started to increase. 5,000 baht here, 10,000 baht there, 20,000 baht for something Bao said was an emergency. When Christopher asked about the larger withdrawals, Bo would explain her mother needed more money. There was a problem with the house. A family member was sick. Each time she would show him photos or documents, and each time Christopher would accept her explanation. He trusted her. She was his wife. By the end of July, 3 months after their marriage, Christopher had transferred or allowed Bo to withdraw around 120,000 euros. He was starting to feel uncomfortable. He still had around 70,000 euros left, but the money was disappearing faster than he had anticipated. He asked Bo if they could sit down and go through their expenses together, to create a budget, to make sure they were being responsible. Bao became defensive. She said he was accusing her of stealing, that he did not appreciate everything she was doing for him, that she was insulted by his lack of trust. She said if he was going to treat her like a criminal, maybe they should not be married. Christopher backed down. He did not want to fight. He did not want to lose her. In early August, Christopher needed to go to Bangkok for a few days to renew his visa. He asked Bo if she wanted to come with him, but she said she needed to stay in Pattaya to take care of some family matters. Christopher thought nothing of it. He took a bus to Bangkok, spent 2 nights in a cheap hotel near the immigration office, and returned to Pattaya on a Thursday afternoon. When he opened the door to their condo, he immediately knew something was wrong. The apartment was empty, not just empty of Bo, but empty of everything. The furniture, the television, the kitchen appliances, the small decorations Bo had put up all gone. Even the curtains had been taken down. Christopher stood in the middle of the bare apartment, unable to breathe, unable to process what he was seeing. He pulled out his phone and tried calling Bo. The phone went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. He opened line and sent her a message. The message showed as unread. He checked her Facebook page. It had been deleted. He walked into the bedroom and found a single piece of paper on the floor, folded in half. He picked it up and opened it. The note was handwritten in English, in Bo's messy script. "Don't hate me. I need to live my life. You are a good man, but I cannot stay. I am sorry." Christopher felt his legs give out. He sat down on the floor, his back against the wall, staring at the note. This could not be happening. This could not be real. Bo was his wife. She had married him. They had built a life together. He pulled out his phone and opened his banking app with shaking hands. He logged into his account and stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The balance showed 2,400 euros. He scrolled through the transaction history. Over the past 3 days while he had been in Bangkok, there had been a series of large withdrawals, cash withdrawals from ATMs all over Pattaya. Transfers to Thai bank accounts he did not recognize, payments to mobile banking services, all of it authorized with his card and PIN number, all of it done by Bao. 190,000 euros. Everything he had worked for over 40 years, gone. Christopher sat on the floor of the empty condo for over an hour, unable to move, unable to think. He had been warned. Every expat in Pattaya had told him this would happen. Graham had told him, the forums had told him, even the 3-day rule had been designed specifically to prevent this. And Christopher had ignored all of it, believing that he was different, that Bo was different, that their love was real. Christopher went to the Pattaya police station the next morning. He brought his phone, his bank statements, the marriage certificate, the note Bo had left. He sat across from a bored-looking officer and tried to explain what had happened. The officer barely looked at the documents Christopher had spread out on the desk. "This is domestic matter," the officer said in broken English. "She, your wife. You give her access to money. She take money. This not crime. You want divorce, you go lawyer. Police cannot help." "But she took everything," Christopher said, his voice breaking. "She emptied my account and disappeared. How is that not theft?" The officer shrugged. "You give her card. You give her PIN. She not force you. This your choice. Many Farang have same problem. This your mistake. Christopher left the police station feeling numb. He went to a lawyer's office, a small practice near Walking Street that advertised services in English. The lawyer, a Thai woman in her 40s, listened to his story and shook her head sympathetically. I am very sorry, Mr. Nolan, but there is not much we can do. You voluntarily gave her access to your bank account. The withdrawals were authorized with your card and PIN. Legally, she did nothing wrong. You would need to prove that she defrauded you, which is very difficult. What about the marriage? Christopher asked. Can I get it annulled? You can file for divorce, but it will take time and money. And even if the divorce is granted, you will not get your money back. It is gone. Christopher sat in silence. Then he asked, how much would it cost to file for divorce? Around 50,000 baht, maybe more if there are complications. 50,000 baht, about 1,300 euros. Christopher did not even have that much left. Christopher tried calling his family in Ireland to tell them what had happened. His daughter Oif answered, and when he explained, there was a long, uncomfortable silence. Dad, she finally said, her voice cold, I cannot believe you did this. You married some girl you met in a bar. You gave her all your money. What were you thinking? I thought she loved me, Christopher said. She didn't love you, Dad. She saw an easy target and she took everything. And now you have nothing. Can you help me? Can you send me some money to come home? Aif sighed. No, Dad. You made this mess. You need to deal with it yourself. I have my own life, my own problems. I cannot bail you out. His son Liam did not even answer his call. Christopher tried calling his ex-wife Siobhan, hoping she might show some compassion. She listened to his story and then said, Christopher, you were always impulsive. This does not surprise me. Good luck. And she hung up. Christopher had no money for a flight back to Ireland. He had no money for the condo rent. He had no money for anything. He moved out of the condo and into the cheapest guest house he could find, a dingy place on Suai Bua Khao that cost 2,000 baht per month, about 54 euros. The room was barely large enough for a single bed, and the shared bathroom was filthy. Christopher started looking for work, teaching English under the table, helping expats with electrical repairs, doing odd jobs for a few hundred baht here and there. It was barely enough to survive, but it was something. It has been 6 months since Bo disappeared. Christopher is 56 years old, living in a cheap guest house in Pattaya, surviving on odd jobs and charity. He has no savings, no way to return to Ireland, and no family willing to help him. He has become exactly what he swore. He would never be another broken expat warning newcomers about the mistakes he made. He sits outside the 7-Eleven most evenings now, drinking cheap beer and talking to newly arrived tourists. When they ask him about Pattaya, he tells them about the 3-day rule. He tells them never to fall in love with a bar girl, never to give her access to their money, never to believe they are special or different. Most of them ignore him, just as he ignored Graham. They think they are smarter, more careful, that their situation is unique. Christopher understands. He thought the same thing. He has heard rumors about Bo since she disappeared. Other expats have told him they saw her in Phuket with another older foreign man, acting the same way she had acted with Christopher. One man said she had done this at least 4 times before marrying foreign men, draining their accounts, and vanishing. Christopher feels a deep, crushing shame. He ignored every warning. He broke the 3-day rule. He married a bar girl after knowing her for 2 months. He gave her access to his money, and now he has nothing. Christopher now understands why the 3-day rule exists. It is not because Thai women are inherently dishonest or manipulative. It is because Pattaya is a place where transactional relationships are the norm, where loneliness and desperation are commodities, where professional scammers have perfected the art of making vulnerable men believe they are loved. The 3-day rule exists because after 3 nights, the lines start to blur. The companionship starts to feel real. The affection starts to feel genuine. The promises start to sound believable. And once you pass that threshold, you are lost. You start making excuses, ignoring red flags, convincing yourself that you are different, that she is different, that your connection is special. Christopher broke the rule, and he paid the price. Christopher sits outside the 7-Eleven now, watching the parade of tourists and expats, and he wonders how many of them will repeat his mistakes. He sees older Western men walking hand in hand with young Thai women, and he wants to shake them, to tell them to be careful, to warn them about what is coming, but he knows they will not listen. They never do. He has accepted that he will probably spend the rest of his life in Pattaya, living in cheap guest houses, doing odd jobs, surviving on the margins. He has accepted that he destroyed his own life through a combination of loneliness, spontaneity, and willful ignorance. The 3-day rule exists for a reason. Christopher learned that lesson the hard way, and now, as he sits outside that 7-Eleven with a warm beer and an empty bank account, he has become the living embodiment of why that rule matters. Christopher Nolan is 56 years old, and he lost 190,000 euros, everything he had, to a woman he married, after ignoring every warning, after breaking the 3-day rule, after convincing himself that he was different and that Bo was different. He was not different. She was not different. He was just another lonely man who came to Pattaya looking for love and found only exploitation. Bao never loved him. She saw an opportunity, an impulsive, generous man with money and a desperate need to feel appreciated, and she took it. She was patient, affectionate, and utterly convincing. And when she had everything she needed, she emptied the account and vanished. Christopher sits outside that 7-Eleven now, nursing his beer, and he thinks about the choices he made. He thinks about Graham's warning, about the 3-day rule, about all the moments when he could have walked away but chose to stay. He thinks about how easily a lifetime of work can be erased by a few bad decisions made in the grip of loneliness and hope. He ignored the 3-day rule, and now he is married to a ghost, a woman who exists only in his memories and his regrets. He is trapped in Pattaya, unable to leave, unable to move forward, living as a warning to others who will probably ignore him just as he ignored those who came before. The 3-day rule exists for a reason. Christopher learned that the hard way, and every day, as he sits outside that 7-Eleven watching new arrivals walk past with stars in their eyes and hope in their hearts, he knows that some of them will make the same mistakes he did. And there is nothing he can do to stop them, because in Pattaya, hope is the most dangerous currency of all. And Christopher spent everything he had buying a dream that was never real. Christopher's story is a brutal reminder that the 3-day rule in Pattaya exists for a very specific reason: to protect vulnerable men from their own impulses and from professionals who have perfected the art of exploitation. If this documentary has opened your eyes to how quickly hope and loneliness can destroy a life, please subscribe and share this video. These stories need to be told, and your awareness could save someone from making the same devastating mistakes. Stay vigilant, follow the advice of those who came before you, and remember, in Pattaya, the 3-day rule is not a suggestion, it is survival. Thank you for watching, and please, stay safe.